97.3 ESPN.com's Phillies reporter Frank Klose, who's in Clearwater with the Phillies today, coming off a loss against Pittsburgh. What's going on, Frank?
Hi, gentlemen.
Hi, Frank.
Frank, it's good to catch up with you. I'm sure the weather is a hell of a lot nicer there than where we are right now. But
most of the game was 70 and sunny,
so
I'm very happy to be here right now.
Give us a little, first off, who started the game today? Give us a little insight on the starting pitcher.
Well, it was Jerad Eickhoff, and he was so-so. And actually, one of our really good tweeters that always asks me questions, Ed Casey, he actually asked me a question. He said, "Is this Jerad Eickhoff getting his work in, or should I be worried?" And my response to him was, "This is Jerad Eickhoff getting his work in." I think someone like Eickhoff, because his rotation spot is pretty secure at this point, he's just kind of working on some things, and so he's going to take the loss today. But really, I think he looks okay. He gave up a few runs early, and they probably pulled him longer, a little bit sooner than they thought they would. But for the most part, I thought he mostly looked okay in terms of what he was doing. I think he was just kind of getting his work in, and it's a luxurious position for somebody like Eickhoff to be in, whereas these young guys are kind of fighting for their professional lives. He knows he's got a spot in this Phillies rotation, and he's just kind of working on his pitches. Just, one example I always give is a few years ago, I remember Cole Hamels here. He came into a spring training game and threw nothing but curveballs. He didn't care who hit them. He didn't care where they landed. It was just, I'm here to work on my curveball today, and that's what he did. And I don't know if Eickhoff was that extreme, but he was certainly getting his work in today.
Well, another guy who got his work in and seemingly is having a pretty good spring is Jake Thompson.
No relation.
Oh, sorry. 3 innings of work, 2 strikeouts. His ERA this spring, 1.23. So is he making an impression?
It's really funny because when we talked about him before, there was that one game he kind of came in as like the mop-up man, and I really started to wonder if the Phillies had kind of written Thompson off. But he's very quietly pitching pretty well. Now, the one thing I will say, if you're going to just look at the numbers, Thompson's coming in later in the game, and that means that, like, for example, and I know Pete retweeted me on this one, there were 2 different number 91s batting back-to-back for a couple innings today. All right, and usually when that happens, it means the opposition is not putting their best players on the field. So Jake Thompson got number 91 and then number 91 out. But he's not really facing the starting lineup for the Pirates or any other team. So I think if the Phillies are really going to look at Thompson as somebody that's going to have a shot to really do something with the Phillies roster this year, what I think they need to do is they really need to get Thompson in the earlier innings, because kind of the standard format in spring training, especially early, is you throw your one starter for 2 innings, then you throw the next starter for 2 innings. Thompson got that luxury in the beginning, but now Thompson's coming in later in the game, and the later you enter a game, the more likely you're going to see number 91 and 91 back-to-back.
Another guy that I know you've liked, Hobie Milner, in the past. He's been a guy who's been successful at the minor league level. Is he a factor in this bullpen arms competition?
I think so. I still think the lefties in this bullpen are going to be Adam Morgan, who got the win yesterday, and Hobie Milner. Abad is in camp. He was the veteran arm that they signed to a minor league contract towards the end. And so far, Abad hasn't gotten a lot of work, and I don't think he's done a lot that really impressed. So I think going into the season, you're going to see Hobie Milner and Adam Morgan are your lefties. And, certainly they did a very nice job last year. I know some of the analytic-minded people tended to think that Milner was perhaps showing a little bit more than he actually is. But I think that Milner definitely has earned the opportunity to at least start the season in the major leagues. And unlike a lot of the other guys that might come in, so Milner is a left-handed guy, and he's a guy with minor league options. So if you add somebody like Abad to the roster, not only do you need to cut somebody along the way, but then if you want to send them to the minor leagues, you're gonna have to put him through waivers, or he might not want to go there because he's a veteran. He's earned that right not to go to the minor league, so it's going to be a lot more difficult. So I think entering the year with Morgan and Milner as your lefties, it makes a lot of sense.
Frank, let me ask a bigger picture question to you about spring training, because I hear this debate all the time. Spring training games, they don't really matter. Do spring training games matter?
Wins and losses, no. Your starters mostly come out of the game. At this point in spring training, if your starters go more than 5 innings, in terms of the players on the field, you're a little bit, puzzled why they're still in the game. Someone like, if you think about the Rhys Hoskins, the Carlos Santanas, all the starters, they pretty much came out en masse, all in one shot. I think I even tweeted about it that Nick Williams and Jorge Alfaro at one point were the only 2 starters still in the game. And then the inning later, both of them were gone. So I think at this, you get to a certain point here. Part of the atmosphere here at Spectrum Field is that, you come, you see your starters, and then you kind of wander over the tiki bar in left field, so.
I know that route very well.
Right. So I think everybody kind of understands that, the first few innings you have the starters versus the starters. And then once you get past that, it's really a matter of who are the young guys coming into the game that might have a future with the Phillies later? Who are the guys who are probably bound for AAA, who are trying to show that they really belong in the major leagues, and that's their chance to shine. We're seeing a lot of Tommy Joseph coming in later in the games, and as we talked about before, he really didn't have a place on this roster going into camp. So it seems like right now when the Hoskins-Santana first base position kind of turns over in the 5th inning, like we're saying, Joseph's going to come in and he's going to get a lot of at-bats, and he's going to show either the Phillies or somebody else that he is worth bringing north after spring training. So does spring training matter? Yeah, it really does matter for guys like Joseph who really want to show something. But if you're talking wins and losses, it really doesn't matter. And like we said about Eickhoff, if he's here working on a pitch or two, he's not trying to win. The Cole Hamels example, throwing all curveballs just because he wants to get his curveball right before he comes north. He's not trying to win. So it's there's really no way you can look at win-loss records and say, well, this team is bound for greatness because they've really won. And if I'm not mistaken, I think in both 1993 and in 2008, the Phillies had the worst record in Grapefruit League action.
Frank Klose down in Clearwater with the Phillies. All right, let's get our hands dirty a little bit here. We got guys that are really intriguing to find out more about. One guy's hitting .857. All right, .857. He hit a ground ball to short today and beat it out by 5 steps and then stole second base. Scott Kingery. I mean, they showed Gabe Kapler on the television screen, and he kind of looked over at one of his assistants like, are we really going to keep this guy off the roster? Now, we know he's not going to make the team, but you said on Tuesday that the probability might be going up a little bit more. Is there any buzz down there about Kingery and, maybe changing course? We get it. They don't want to start that clock. But if they legitimately think that they have a chance at one of those wild card spots, even if you could pick up a couple extra wins in April with him on the team, don't you do a disservice not putting him on there?
Yeah, it's really funny because I tweeted when Kingery entered the game, he entered it as a pinch runner for Cameron Rupp. Cameron Rupp hit a double, and Kingery entered as a pinch runner at second base. Kingery just immediately steals third base, all right? Now, I did tweet that the Phillies are really working with Kingery to really maximize the potential with his speed this spring. And, man, boy, did he maximize that potential today. So not only does he steal third on that double, but he gets the next at-bat because he replaces Rupp as designated hitter. And he legs out this ground ball to, it was kind of the shortstop to the shortstop's right. Okay, that's the kind of play that a fast batter is going to leg out. And then he goes and steals second right afterwards. Like, man, watching that, you kind of look at him and actually it's funny because, from the press box, I can't see Gabe Kapler at all, let alone the expressions he's making. But But man, certainly up in the press box, we were very, very impressed. And at a certain point, there are many reasons as we've discussed over the last several weeks about why Kingery would benefit from starting in AAA. But the more you watch him play, I'm sure Gabe Kapler is like, man, I want that guy on my team. But
I can't see how he would not. Now, this happened a couple of years ago. We know with Chris Bryant, and I remember saying, like, look, if you have – okay, let's morph into this question. Any buzz that the Phillies, we're seeing some of these free agents just take one-year deals. They're kind of biting the bullet and just saying, you know what, I'll try again next year. Any indication that a veteran guy, an Arrieta, a Lynn, it would be closer to signing with the Phillies?
Well, you know what? In the last 24 hours, we saw Mike Moustakas sign a one-year deal with the Royals for very cheap. I think it's just north of $6 million. So Mike Moustakas, a Scott Boras client, signs with the Royals for
38 homers last year.
And then Carlos Gonzalez today re-ups with the Colorado Rockies. So I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking, like, Jake Arrieta, he's gonna end up signing soon because it seems like the Scott Boras clients are finally like going in. Either the players are feeling nervous now. The agent really should always respect the players' wishes, and Boras does that for as tough an agent as he is for teams. He really does respect his clients' wishes. So you know what? If Arrieta knows that he can get 3 years from the Phillies and he's comfortable with his situation, thinking back to his relationship with Phillies player development guy Joe Jordan and Matt Klentak and Andy McPhail, if he says, look, just get me 3 years to the Phillies as best you can, they might have a shot because these players now are starting to bend. The players that really kind of perhaps over anticipated what the market would bring, right now they're starting to take deals. And, last night, the first thing I said when I saw the Moustakas deal was, hey, look, Arrieta can't be that far away because same agent, this point in spring training, something's got to give. And I think the Phillies have as much chance as anybody else if he's willing to compromise.
Okay, so now let's build off that. If they were to sign an Arrieta or a Lynn, okay, aren't you doing your team a disservice if you have a player that starts for you and gives you a better chance to win to sit him down for a month? Let's say even if you gain 3 extra wins in September, you find yourself 3 games out of that wild card race. You'd be kicking yourself in the ass.
Well, I agree with you there, but then the still unresolved question is where do you put Kingery if he comes up? So let's say there was that one report out there a few weeks ago. I think it was either J.P. Morosi and John Heyman or a combination of the two that said, hey, you know what? If the cards fall the right way, maybe Phillies get 2 pitchers. Well, if you're the Phillies and you get 2 pitchers, it's like, well, why stop there? But the superstar player right now is 6 WAR, okay? Wins above replacement. And if Kingery is, I don't think Kingery is going to give you that superstar level talent yet, but if he gives you 2 or 3, you might be able to wait a little bit and look at your roster and see just where he's going to fit in. But I think, if the Phillies ended up with Arrieta and Lynn, I think their attitude is definitely going to change into one of, well, let's see who we have on this roster to what can we do with this roster to make the playoffs and do very, very well. So you can see the Phillies' attitude change big time if 2 players like Arrieta and Lynn fall into their lap. And if it's just one, if it just happens to be Arrieta, think back to the Chicago Cubs. They signed John Lester 1 year prior to when they thought they were going to compete. And Arrieta helped stabilize that rotation, and guess what? The next year, they're World Series champs.
Yeah. Well, the man's hitting 857. 857. He hit a – Frank, you were there, okay? I'm watching the game on TV. It's I don't want to say a routine ground ball, but the shortstop has to take 2 steps to his left, a backhand, and a throw. It's a play that's made every night in baseball. He crossed that bag. He was 5 steps past the bag. I mean, that's a routine play in the majors, right? I mean, you were there. Do you see it differently in person than we saw it on TV?
I didn't think it was routine, but I would agree with you that more often than not.
Right. I'm not saying it was a routine ball hit right at him. He had to take a step or 2 to his right and backhand it, pivot, and throw. But that's a play that I mean, major league shortstops make that play.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% in that regard. But yeah, no, that was that. Of all the things I saw today,
The play wasn't even close. He beat it out by 5 steps.
Of everything I saw today, Scott Kingery was the highlight of everything. It's both stolen bases, that beat out ground ball, absolutely Scott Kingery all the way.
Now, he was the highlight of everything. Of course, the highlight in the secondary circus would probably be Hulk Hogan down there today, right? Right.
I actually didn't bump into him. I think when they kind of mentioned on the PA that he was here, he wasn't that far from the press box. There's a little ledge. I think they call it Whale Beach, which is up above, not that far off the side of the press box. And everybody stood up looking around right at it. I was probably like 20 feet away, but I did not get to see Hulk Hogan.
Now Hogan is from that area. He's got the Hogan Beach Shop down there on Clearwater Beach. I make sure, Frank, that I make an appearance there every year, hoping that I run into the Hulkster, but I never see him in the actual store when I go. But what's that?
He used to have a restaurant too in Tampa on the water, but that is no more.
No, it was him and Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, owned that thing together.
Yeah, Hogan's Beach. It was a fun little place, but unfortunately it's gone.
Yeah, well, he's got the place. It's down on Clearwater Beach, right next door to the Brown Boxer. For the people who are familiar with the Brown Boxer, there's that little strip mall there, and there's a big caricature out front of his place of Hulk Hogan that people get pictures with all the time. But he's got all his championship belts, and you can buy stuff in there. But he was down there at Phillies spring training today. I want to ask real quick about another guy who's hitting – we talk about 857. Alfaro's hitting 529, seemingly having a pretty good spring as well.
Alfaro, as I mentioned a little while ago, they kept him in longer than the rest of the starters. When you look at Alfaro, he just seems like he's got a couple things to work out, but he's got a lot of talent. And this is the type of talent that you trade Cole Hamels for, So I understand that you trade a player like Cole Hamels, who's a franchise icon, World Series MVP. You really can't take lightly any trade that you make. I think Ruben Amaro, and I said this before, I know people don't like me to like Ruben Amaro, but I think he did a fantastic job at that trade deadline. And, even though there are players that came in that deal that never were going to work out ever, whether it be Matt Harrison or Alec Asher, right? Because they came over in that trade too. But, I think they have the guy that's going to be their catcher for years to come. He's got to work out some defense issues, but you just look at him. He is a big guy. He's got lots of strength. He's got quite the arm. And you know what? If you want to say he's got a couple of things to work on as a backstop, fine. I think that's a fair assessment. But man, that guy is. He just seems like he is going to be a mainstay in this Phillies lineup for a long time.
And Frank, there's some news today, social media-wise. If you don't have Facebook and you're a Phillies fan, you might want to sign up for a Facebook account, right, Frank?
Yeah, so for the first time ever, there will be 25 Major League games that are broadcast exclusively on Facebook. And we say exclusively on Facebook, that means you can't watch them on regular cable. It means you can't watch them through your MLB.TV subscription, which is surprising because I used to have every game everywhere. But it's going to kick off with the Phillies and the Mets on April 4th at 1:10 p.m. in Flushing, New York. You're going to be able to watch the game on Facebook Live. And the Phillies and Mets are the first ones. And if you watch the game, it'll be very much like an MLB Network game in terms of production. It'll probably be their announcers. You probably won't get the local announcers, but this is quite the change. For all the people that thought that terrestrial radio was going to go away, right?
How dare you?
That hasn't happened, though, right? 97.3 ESPN gets great ratings, and they're still around. But, maybe TV is the thing that's going to go away first, right?
The way things are going, you've seen football on Twitter. You got baseball on Facebook. We had Yahoo carry a football game a year or so ago with Netflix. Yeah, everybody is trying to figure out ways to cut that cord, and that's a pretty interesting story. Frank has more details on our website, 973ESPN.com. So, Frank, you're in Clearwater with the Phillies. What's on tap tomorrow with the Phils?
Well, the Phillies are back here again tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and This one I'm actually going to enjoy from the seats. I'm going to enjoy this as a fan tomorrow. So my LaSalle University alumni event is here, so I'm going to do that tomorrow. But very much looking forward to just getting to relax as a fan in the seats tomorrow and the buffet that they're going to have here for the group.
All right, nice. Who's did they announce who's pitching yet?
It's funny because the game notes usually always have that in advance, and the game notes I got today do not have that. So,
all right, they've been keeping it a secret. Like all, let me see.
Yeah. It might be on Phillies.com
they've
right
got
now,
Vince Velasquez tomorrow.
Okay, Vince Velasquez.
There you go.
Right.
Who's I guess if the season was to start right now, who's your 5?
All right, Nola obviously. Then behind him it's going to be Eickhoff. Then Velasquez. Then I go Lively, and then I go Pavetta. Unless you get Jake Arrieta, then I subtract from the bottom there. So we'll see what happens. The Phillies still are supposedly in on a starter. I think they're just kind of playing chicken, and they're going to get somebody. Let's see who it is. But it's definitely a good sign that the Boris clients are all starting to sign with teams.
I didn't hear Eflin in there, Frank. Zach Eflin not in your rotation?
He's a tough one. He seems like the guy that should have stepped up by now. If it's me making the decision, I pick Pavetta over Eflin.
All right. Frank Klose at Frank Klose. Of course, you can hear his Phillies minutes all throughout the day here on 97.3 ESPN. It appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Where are you heading tonight? Smoky Bones?
Yeah, that's a great question. I might go hit up the Cigar City Brewery out in Tampa.
Ooh, nice. Heading down to Tampa. All right, pal. Well, be safe.
All right, we'll do. Thanks, guys.